What was the creepiest or most paranormal thing that's ever happened to you? One afternoon in college, I came back from classes and decided to sit on the couch and have a snack. After that, I just passed out. I had a nightmare of some bloody-faced demonish thing screaming in my ear at the top of its lungs. Woke up and went about the rest of my day. My roommate comes back later that night and goes into his room. As I'm sitting in the main living area, at some point he lets out this random startled scream, which leads to me running down the hall to see what's going on. He looks at me and goes, "I swear to God, someone with a bloody face just walked from your bedroom into the bathroom." I never told him about my nightmare I had earlier in the day. I didn't sleep for 2 days. Nothing ever happened again. My brother and I were home alone one night watching TV. My mother was working a night shift and father was out. Father came home and pushed the door ajar and poked his head through to say hello. We both turn around and say hello back. Father closed door. 30 seconds after, another man opens the door to say hello. We both turn around and say hello back. Man closes door. We assume a friend of my father has come back to the house too. Anyway, about 5 minutes later, I head into the kitchen where my father was making dinner or whatever, and I am expecting to see his friend again. I see that he's alone making dinner and assumed his friend was upstairs in the bathroom. I ask my father who his friend is. My father looks at me and asks me what friend. I reply, "The guy who came back with you." Dad looks at me thinking I am some sort of weirdo. He says I came back home on my own. Biggest what I've ever experienced. My brother was freaked out to the max, remembering the man's face. He was pale looking and bright white hair. When I was in college, I house sat for my parents. I'm a bit of a scaredy cat, so I locked every door leading up to the bedroom. When I went to bed at night, I had the weirdest dream that someone unlocked each door and turned on every light. I felt cold and woke up to my dog barking. All of the lights in the house were on and every door open and unlocked. My dog wouldn't stop barking at nothing in the hallway. I sat in the shower with my dog and a phone the rest of night, scared to death. My grandmother's house had a very distinct smell. Nothing bad though, just a grandmother's house smell. Anyway, when she came to visit us, she always used to sit in a specific chair in the living room. Shortly after she passed away, my father, my older sister, and myself came home, and when we walked into the living room, and we all smelled her. My dad said, "Hello, Ethel," and the smell disappeared. I would be skeptical if just one of us experienced this, but it was all 3 of us. My grandfather passed away when I was 8, and my little brother was 2 or 3-ish. He had this big lazy boy chair in the living room that he always planted himself in. Everyone knew this chair was Grandpa's chair. Anyway, we went down to my grandparents' house in Florida for a long weekend to attend the funeral, etc. We're all chatting the first night there in the living room, and my mom was sitting in the lazy boy chair. My little brother goes up to my mom and says Grandpa wants his chair back. My mom asks him where Grandpa is, thinking he probably didn't understand death, to which he responds, "He's right behind you." My mom bolted off that sofa immediately. Somewhat ironically, something happened to me last night. I got home from work very early in the morning, 2:30 a.m. My house has an entryway or mudroom. Before you actually get into the house, I open the front door, step inside, close front door, and proceed to try and find a key to get through the next door to get into my house. So the only light in this entryway is through the glass on the front door. The rest of the room is completely black and I can barely see my hands in front of my face. All of a sudden I start to hear this buzzing, vibrating noise behind me off to the right. House is old, so maybe just weird house noises. Still looking for the key when I notice that the noise is getting louder, closer, and it has risen in pitch to something like of a woman was humming loudly. Maybe it's just ringing in my ear. Out of the corner of my eye I see a shadow that I thought was from light reflecting outside move towards me, creeping along the wall. That's when I noticed the vibrating noise was also getting closer to me, and it seemed to be coming in the same direction as the now moving shadow. I'm shastristing my pants trying to open this damn door And when I finally do, the noise stops, the shadow disappears, and I'm hoping it was all in my head. I was sleeping in my basement, pretty much my bedroom, and I woke up at some random time in the night for no reason, rolled over, and saw a black figure, probably around 5 feet 10 inches, and typical male physique, standing at the side of my bed. It was standing between the bed and the stairs, so there was no way to nope out. I just rolled over and straight up started praying. I rolled back over, and it was gone. The next morning, I was in the shower, also in the basement, and the curtain was pushed to the side, not like all the way that it noticeably moved. And when I got out of the shower, my cello's D string was plucked 3 times, then wrung out, which was laying against my chair in the basement. Then I went upstairs, and my brother had a hand print that reached across his neck and cheek. It was too big to be his hand, but he was perfectly fine, and he slept through the night uninterrupted. 20 or so years ago, while living in NM, driving east on Highway 60 at night between Vaughan and FT Sumner, 2 of us in the car, and noticed a really bright light on the right rear side. I mean really bright. We then remembered that the train tracks were there, so we kept driving without really thinking about it. Well, the light stayed with us, which was weird because trains usually don't go that fast out there. So, then my friend rolls down the window and look back to see that it is, and suddenly the light vanishes. Also no sound, so now we're a little freaked. We pull over to check things out. Well, a new realization sets in. There are no train tracks next to the road on this section of road. So now we're really freaked out and bolt out of there ASAP. We told our story to people at work, and of course caught some grief, but that's what happened to us. As a child, I moved around a lot, army brat, and I insisted that every house I moved to was haunted. Nothing major ever happened, just weird noises, opening doors, things being in places that makes no sense. It wasn't until my second year at uni that I clocked on that I was haunted, not the houses, after my housemate suggested it. Anyway, last year, I was on the way to my uni house for my job at a bar at about 3 a.m. To get into the house, you have to walk down a privately owned alleyway. Just as I reach the entrance to this alley, a man runs up behind me and spins me around. He's clearly had a bit too much to drink and starts trying to grab me, touch me up, and convince me to remove my t-shirt. Naturally, I'm very uncomfortable and scared. I remember that the window to the house had an alarm that went off if the window was hit. I figured if I could get down the alley and hit the window, my 2 male housemates would wake up and help. Only issue, every time I walked down the alley, he'd grab me again. After maybe 5 minutes of a struggle, the man hit me. Next thing you know, the alarm on the window goes off, waking up my housemates and scaring off the man. Next day, the police were called. We gave them access to the CCTV footage at either end of the alley. The man was caught on tape, but since most of the incident occurred in the alley, there was not enough evidence to charge. Later that day, my housemates and I decided to check the footage to see what caused the alarm to go off. There was nothing, no bird, cat, or any other animal. The alarm just went off. This had never happened before and didn't happen any time after either. I'm convinced it was my ghost. It used to freak me out, but I'm kinda glad it's around now. Not sure if paranormal or not, but I have a weird warning system that functions without any obvious triggers. For example, once I hiked through the forest to some old castle on a hill. To get there, I needed to cross a bridge that goes over a 20-meter deep canyon. I've been there 1,000 times, as I used to live in the area. This particular time, I started to get a weird feeling. As soon as I stepped into the forest, it got stronger and stronger, until it was pure fear. I thought I must have eaten something wrong or so, because there was no reason whatsoever to be afraid. So I tried to ignore it and went on. Right before I stepped onto the bridge, that weird feeling acted up so wildly I almost turned back. Again, I convinced myself that I was being stupid and made it to the middle of the bridge. One has quite a nice view from that position into forest and the rock formations below. So as always, I stopped and looked down to the right side of the bridge. Then I turned to the left, but before I could look down, that feeling didn't let me. At that point, I really thought that I must go crazy but still I obeyed, didn't look down, and made my way to the castle ruin complex that started right behind the bridge. Been there for 15 minutes when some police officers arrived, started to scream at me to come down as I was climbing the old walls, interrogated me who I was, what I did there, who I saw on my way to the castle, how long I have been there, and how come I didn't see the dead guy under the bridge on the left side. So apparently he jumped shortly before I arrived, and I guess they thought I was involved or a suicide buddy of him, and was about to jump from the ruin walls. Turns out I can sense dead people or whatever. I had a couple experiences with that warning system. Weird.